Black Lives Matter glosses over the complexities of a world where we all need to come together and kill Whitey.
Look, the BBC need to be destroyed.
Sir? May I see your invitation, please?
Sure. Here's my invitation.
Well, obviously not like that, but financially speaking, they must be defunded. And it's assisted suicide, if anything, at this point. I mean, credibility-wise, they're practically a walking corpse, in the sense of lacking anything that might once have resembled a British soul. And Frankie Boyle's New World Order really typifies this. Now, it's woke comedy, which sounds like an oxymoron, but let's go with it. We're a group of leftists? What's the collective noun for leftists? Herd? Gaggle? Spunk bubble? I'm going to go with spunk bubble. We're a spunk bubble of leftists burp out regressive talking points without even a whiff of a sanity check. I mean, if you've seen other political panel shows, like I think Sky does The Pledge, right? And sure, they have the Afua Hirsch character, who's the blacktivist, anti-white, fucking race grifter. But they've also got Nick Ferrari, who's centre-right and tends to push back, as well as a Majid Nawaz type to sort of bridge the gap. So there's the beginning of a dialogue taking place. This show, right here, it's like if you could have been a fly on the wall at Waco, this is the sort of stuff you'd have heard, I imagine. It's just maniacs talking. A bunch of blacks with a chip on their shoulder, lying and bitching about white people. Paid for by you and under the guidance of Frankie Boyle, a man who is in urgent need of a lifeguard as he is drowning in white guilt. I can smell it off of him. It's fucking disgusting. Almost as disgusting as his face, right? Which looks like the product of a marriage between a pedophile and a cat's anus. I mean, seriously, I've never seen anyone look so fucking ugly with just one head.
Joining us to discuss our motion, please welcome comedian Dane Baptiste. How you doing, Dane? How you been?
I've been good. I've been just doing my normal stuff of rationalising my modern existence during the continued genocide of my people. So, usual stuff. just chilling. Just chilling. Sorry.
I've just realised that I'm going to have to stop describing the UK as a non-racist country. Because it clearly is now. And it clearly is in the following respect. A black person can appear on television in contemporary Britain and say something so repugnantly stupid as my people are undergoing a genocide and get away with it. Nobody says a thing. And the reason for that is a combination of anti-white racism in the form of masochistic self-pity and anti-black racism as expressed through the soft bigotry of low expectations. Because understand something. If absurdities like that were coming out of a white guy's mouth, Frankie Boyle would be all over it. But because he doesn't regard Dane Baptiste as his equal, he doesn't respect him enough to challenge the idiotic statements that come out of his gob. I mean, who around that table will do black people the courtesy of saying, sorry, Dane, let me get this straight. Are you claiming that the police shooting of a couple of hundred violent criminals in the United States every year as they resist arrest with deadly weapons constitutes a systematic attempt to eradicate black people from the face of the earth? And if you are saying that, are you on crack?
I know you were being really funny, but if I'd laughed then, it would have looked really insensitive.
At this stage, I'm massively numb.
Definitely crack.
We're just the war table now. It's all got all the different ideas that come
And
together.
also, we have all the enemies of whitey. A woman with an opinion.
Oh, can I be on your team in the war, please? I mean, pass the sick bucket. I want to take a shower.
A black woman with an opinion. Even worse.
Has she got a name? Or is it just black woman with opinion? I'm black woman with opinion. Advanced prototype. Like, what the fuck are you doing?
Someone of dual heritage and a Celt. I mean, worst nightmare right now.
So the Celts aren't white now. Yeah, you might want to check with, what's his name? Hamza Yusuf, the Scottish MP, about that.
The Lord President, white. The Lord Justice Clerk, white. Every High Court judge, white. The Lord Advocate, white. The Solicitor General, white. The Chief Constable, white. Every Deputy Chief Constable, white. Every Assistant Chief Constable, white. The Head of the Law Society, white. The Head of the Faculty of Advocates, white.
He's pretty clear the Celts are white.
I'm also kind of a Hindu, but let's not go
I'm kind of a Hindu. I mean, this is the stuff of white Anglo-Saxon Protestant nightmares right now, so...
Jesus, Frankie Boyle's a Hindu? A product of reincarnation? Who the fuck was he in a past life? Stig of the dump? And I love how this Baptiste character is one step away from drawing up actual battle plans. And he's not joking, by the way. People will say that. They'll say, chill out, man, he's joking. He's not, right? First of all, where's the joke? If I say, knock knock, who's there, doctor, doctor-oo, that's a joke, right? Or, why did Frankie Boyle cross the road? Because his dick was stuck in the chicken, right? That's a joke. It's got a fucking punchline. Where's the punchline in, we have all the enemies of Whitey here, and then he just lists them, right? That's not a joke. That's what he thinks. He's fighting a race war against white people, and the BBC are advertising it, right? They'll be giving out recruitment forms this time next year.
So it's all going on. I really feel like we are basically at that point where we've just reached the post-war apex of our new civilization, and ideas like whiteness and bipartisan politics just don't really work anymore, particularly in this country where we are always so smugly and obnoxiously outspoken about our atheism and the fact that we're a secular society and how much more we're enlightened than the theological disposition of Americans. Well, then, by that same token, by the Darwinistic definition of race, race cannot exist. Going back to evolution, you know, if every time you're introduced to a stimulus that's going to cause fight or flight and you evolve in order to deal with that stimulus, it's only going to be 2 more generations before black people are bulletproof.
Did you catch any of that? Largely gobbledygook from where I'm sitting. I mean, obviously factual errors, right? Britain is officially a Christian country, whereas America is, by contrast, the first democracy to constitutionally enshrine a wall of separation between church and state, so...
Jog on.
Then he said, because Darwin got race wrong, race doesn't exist, which, I mean, really stupid, that one. He also got genetics wrong. Does that mean genes don't exist? But the bit I found most interesting was before that, when he said something like, whiteness just doesn't work anymore.
Ideas like whiteness and bipartisan politics just don't really work anymore.
And we know what whiteness is, of course, thanks to the silly cunts over at the National Museum of African American History. Rugged individualism, the nuclear family, the scientific method, including rational thinking and quantitative emphasis, hard work being the key to success, delayed gratification, respect for authority, and a justice system based on English common law. So another term for whiteness is just Western civilization, basically. And seeing as how the narcissistic dipshits who comprise BLM constantly prattle on about the black experience, let me share with you the white experience for a change. This is what it's like to be an indigenous Briton, okay? First, we're told, we're coming to your country. But don't worry, there aren't many of us, and it might be quite nice to introduce a degree of cultural novelty to, you know, complement your civilization. Sure, why not? Then we get a phone call saying, actually, there's more of us than we let on, and pretty soon you'll be a minority in your ancestral home. But don't worry, because we love Britain. We're coming to be like you. We recognise the superiority of your society, and we just want the opportunity to benefit from and perpetuate that. Okay, I guess. You're sort of changing the rules halfway through, but pinky promise? And now we check the post and find a letter saying, truthfully, this British thing going on here doesn't really work for us. Sorry. So we're going to change that, yeah? And if you don't like it, you hate black people and fuck you.
This deal is getting worse all the time.
I certainly think the idea of white Britishness detached from any sense of its own history is kind of like really dangerous now. I don't think white people in Britain understand the racial history of Britain. They don't understand the history of empire, and they don't want to.
Yeah.
Why the fuck would we want to do that? Many of us do understand it, actually. And Frankie, your head is emptier than a hermit's address book. If you and I were to have a conversation about the British Empire, it would just be me talking. But it's completely irrelevant. We are contemporary Britons living in the 21st century. I'm on this earth for 80 years, if I'm lucky. Do you honestly think I'm going to spend that time hunting through the savannah of history to track down whatever perceived injustice the grievance mongers are whining about this week? I have never been a slave owner, okay? Dane Baptiste has never been a slave, so piss off.
So, the killing of George Floyd triggered a huge wave of anti-racism protests. Luckily, one voice emerged to seek to bring everybody together. It was the voice of superstar DJ David Guetta, who took to a blustery New York rooftop to remind us why white people shouldn't be allowed to make music.
That gets the real stuff. That was just, it was putting me off.
I love that joke because it wonderfully summarises everything wrong with this programme. Firstly, it's not funny, right? And secondly, it's total bullshit. Who has ever even implied that white people shouldn't be allowed to make music? The greatest musicians of all time are white. Every single one of them. If you did a top 100, right, it would be Brahms, Bach, Beethoven, Haydn, Schubert, right? It just goes on, and they're all white. And that's just classical music, which of course is the most accomplished. But take any genre, right? Take rock, and it's Pink Floyd, Metallica, the Rolling Stones, or pop, and you've got Elvis, Madonna, Michael Jackson, white people. So it's just rubbish, but they say it anyway to stick the knife in, right? They just want to dunk on white people. And I don't know what they're about to play for us here, but I'm sure if Whitey was behind it, it'll be a slice of musical gold.
Even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed.
Well, that was fucking dreadful.
Right, so that was shit, obviously. And I don't know who this David Guetta person is, but I tell you what, I'd rather that than anything by Cardi B, for example, whose recent song Wet Ass Pussy could have been written by Satan. I mean, the worst you can say about the I Have a Dream mega mix is that it's irritating cringe, right? Whereas modern black musicians like Cardi B and Nicki Minaj is another one, are actively destroying generations of young people. But let's see what our illustrious panel make of things.
I think it's possibly the whitest thing I've ever seen. It's like the whitest beat, the whitest live stream audience that's in there. The man thinks that he can remix racism. And the thing that annoyed me about it is that he said that all the Heineken, the HP, it's like all these brands trying to get in on it. It's like 2 steps away from having a George Floyd happy hour, where it's like free shots for black people.
My issue isn't with the fact that it was sponsored. If you want to sponsor stuff and do it for COVID, that's fine. It's just when you start using Martin Luther King's speech.
It's the biggest faux liberal kind of gambit they do all the time, is that like when you even express like your disdain for like institutional racism, and understandably you express it with passion or with anger, and people go, why are you being angry? Think about the example set by Martin Luther King. Oh, the person that got shot in the face for his non-violent protest, that guy.
Whenever this guy speaks, I'm convinced there is a village somewhere missing a twat. I mean, he really does not think before opening his stupid face. First of all, what a nasty insinuation that because Martin Luther King was shot, he didn't achieve anything? He was ultimately successful, and the non-violent manner in which he conducted himself had an extraordinary impact. And what's the alternative? Violence? The Malcolm X approach? Because, newsflash, he was shot too. But more importantly, what nation, what century are we living in? This is not 1960s Alabama, right? You have all the rights. What more do you want? Clearly not solidarity, as was attempted by DJ Dickhead earlier. And it's funny because I agree with much of the critique they just levied at that. It is obviously cynical. It is obviously pandering. But that's what they think you want. Partly because you have everything else it is in our power to give you. 99% of the wounds affecting the black community today are self-inflicted, and everybody knows that. So yeah, a dance mix on YouTube is pretty much all you're gonna get out of the white people of 2020. Sorry.
I wanted to make clear my objection to anti-blackness by standing shoulder to shoulder with my black friends, but it's not always easy because I don't have any friends. But I am a big fan of James Baldwin, who I think summarises the dilemma of black Americans very well in this poignant 1968 interview.
1968? So before the moon landings. Fucking hell.
I can't depend on the American moral credit to save some of the people whom I love. But you don't have that moral credit. You know, you told yourself, yourselves, and us, for all these years, nothing but lies. No matter what Martin said. The despair in the ghetto, the despair throughout the country accumulates with every hour. People are uptight about Stokely now because he said black power. No one is concerned about white power, which is now wiping out Southeast Asia. No one's concerned about the white power, which keeps my children in the ghetto, which does not educate my children, except to become inferiors. This is power. And when the Republic reacts as it did to the linking of the two words, power and black, it is a confession of what the country has done with its power.
I find it very odd that some people describe American activity, either home or abroad, as an expression of white power. I don't think that's a legitimate characterization, even for a man of the 1960s. There is an obvious difference between an American and just a white person, right? A difference bore out, by the way, in one of his own examples. He talks about the Vietnam War as an expression of white power in Asia. That war, of course, taking place in the context of a wider conflict between the United States and the Soviet Union. Two empires controlled by white people. Now, would Baldwin label Russian aggression during the Cold War as a projection of white power? I don't know. But even if he would, surely he'd concede that there were crucial differences between the two sides and they were really fighting over something. In other words, you cannot reduce every phenomenon down to the bare bones of race. And when you try, even people as intelligent as James Baldwin will end up sounding silly and simplistic. The American identity is based on principle, on political philosophy. It was, like France, founded on revolution. And it's those revolutionary ideas that were being defended against the North Vietnamese. It's those ideas that were being challenged by the USSR. And if you want to claim that only white people can hold those ideas, in other words, only white people can really be Americans, then them's fighting words, my friend. I mean, that's like your wife telling you that she doesn't love you anymore. That's grounds for divorce.
Did you ever read James Baldwin, Sophie?
I have read some James Baldwin. What I find striking every time that I sort of interact with that idea of white power and black power is that those myths, as you were talking about, those capitalist myths are so prevalent today. They're so real today. Like the myths that we have about black power, like black power Wakanda, it's still a world where Africa was never colonized, was never pillaged for its resources. Like white power is Trump Tower. Like these things are put against each other. But when we say we want to kill Whitey, we don't really mean we want to kill Whitey. We do. But when we say we want to kill Whitey, it's like a capital.
That's a fake laugh, by the way.
Hilarious. Now, I've got a sense of humour, which is why I didn't find that funny. But they do say a grain of truth runs through every joke. And the grain here, of course, is that there is a subsection of Black Lives Matter for whom kill Whitey is 100% the policy. We've seen it. We've seen it in the case of Micah Johnson, the Dallas sniper, who killed 5 police officers in 2016 as a supporter of the Black Lives Matter movement, stating that he wanted to kill white people, specifically white policemen. We've seen it in the case of Corey Muhammad, who was reportedly fed up with racism and decided to kill as many white men as he could. And we've seen it recently in Indiana, where 24-year-old Jessica Whittaker was murdered for saying all lives matter in front of BLM activists. This stuff happens all the time. To the extent that a joke of that nature is so horribly tone-deaf that you just know this person has absolutely no idea what's going on in the real world, has absolutely no idea that interracial violence is a real thing, and the overwhelming victims in that scenario are white people. Even in Great Britain, where our homicide rate is low when compared with a country like the States, whites are 4 times as likely to be killed by blacks than the other way around. So yes, we could be forgiven for believing that when you say you want to kill Whitey, you actually mean it. That is what's happening. And I would submit that the BBC pimping out further demonization of this global minority that is already under siege is probably not a good idea if basic virtues like justice and, I don't know, compassion are still priorities for them.
But when we say we want to kill Whitey, it's like it's a capitalist. Not today.
You're finish the show.
But when people react to people saying that like, white privilege, whiteness is a capitalist structure. It benefits itself. It hurts white people. It hurts non-black people. It hurts black people. But still, this kind of fear of a black alternative, and it's these sort of rhetorics battled against each other. These extreme capitalist rhetorics of supremacy.
Whiteness is a capitalist structure. What an absolute fucking donkey. I cannot compute a mentality that assigns intellectual concepts, economic or otherwise, to racial groups. I mean, imagine if I said modern algebra, right, was invented by the Persians, I think, and therefore anyone using it today to build bridges is engaging in Persian supremacy. Capitalism was developed by white people, okay? Who cares It works wherever you try it. And it's not as if white people have trademarked the bloody thing. Free markets work in Korea. They work in Japan. They work in countries with no resources, which is partly why the implication that Africa would be like Wakanda had her resources not been plundered is so stupid. Take Hong Kong or Singapore, right? These countries are so bereft of resources that they need to import their water. And yet, thanks to capitalism, thanks to property rights, the rule of law, good old-fashioned elbow grease, these places have a GDP per capita that rivals the United States. So go and tell those people their hard-earned success is a demonstration of white power. I mean, you're a fucking embarrassment. The reality is, sections of the black community are failing within the system, and we need to explain that. Nobody wants to, by the way. Nobody wants to call a spade, so I'll do it right now and take the bullet. The reason they are failing is because they suck. These people suck. And they don't have to. They could decide to value the family unit. They could learn the virtues of deferred gratification. They could choose to obey the law, knuckle down, and achieve something millions of black people do. But instead of saying that, and administering some tough love, the BBC will use its influence to play hide the ball and attack white people. Why the fuck would you do that? Who do you think you're helping by mining this vein? It would be like having two teenagers, yeah? One of whom spends her Sundays selling lemonade on the corner, while the other hangs out at the bus shelter, picks fights with strangers, ends up in jail, and the parents say to her, yeah, the reason your sister is successful and popular and happy is because she's a white supremacist and stole your resources. I mean, you'd be a psychopath. Child Protective Services would be on the line. But this is where we are. This is the BBC now. Lie, twist, manipulate, obfuscate, kiss black ass, and kill Whitey. I mean, brilliant. Kill Whitey?
Black Lives Matter glosses over the complexities of a world where we all need to come together and kill Whitey.
Oh, of all the idiotic guys, blow me to Bermuda! Where did he go? To Bermuda, I suppose. Where's that? Oh, an island way off somewhere that hasn't been discovered yet. Will he ever come back? Who knows? Who knows anything?